Good evening. So this weekend I had the nicest time. Me and my two oldest friends, John and Paul, oft mentioned in this series of nonsense videos, went to Gladstone Pottery Museum in Stoke-on-Trent to see each other for the first time in absolutely ages en masse. And we went there because, you may know, that is where episodes 13 and 14 of Trial of a Time Lord were filmed. And just to prove the point, I'm hoping I can make this work. You should now see on your screen John and Paul recreating the Colin Baker being drowned in a barrel moment. Then, now you should see me having my face ripped off. I am obviously the Valliard disguised as Popperwick there. Now you should see me at the Fancy Factory. That's a Fancy Factory, and there you go. And then finally, you should see the three of us outside of a doctor's house, which is quite weirdly placed, but there we go. And a good time was had by all. It was marvellous fellows, both of them, and we had a great time talking about Doctor Who and just being together. Now, the slight sully of the day was the fact that the trains were running appallingly badly. So as a result, I had to spend much longer on the train than I thought I was going to, and as a result I finished two books, one of which is Maggot Moon. I can't remember who wrote Maggot Moon, but it's absolutely brilliant. I highly recommend Maggot Moon. Very fine book, alternate history dystopia thing. And also I finished this book, which I've had on my shelf for a relatively short amount of time for a Doctor Who book on my shelves, because by all accounts and purposes this is generally considered one of the finest 11th Doctor books. Touched by an Angel by Jonathan Morris. And let me tell you this for nothing, common consensus is correct here, because this book is an absolute banger. In fact, I'm going to go so far as to say that this book is one of the best Doctor Who books I've read. It's in the upper pantheon of Doctor Who books, let's put it like that. Of late, I seem to have, I say of late, time works weirdly, doesn't it? Because when I say of late, I mean within the last 5 years. Because Alien Bodies sticks in my mind as being an absolute top-class Doctor Who book. And then there was the Colin Baker one, Shadow in the Glass, that really blew my mind about how good it was. And both of those Doctor Who books were spectacular because I thought they were playing, less so with Alien Bodies because it's an 8th Doctor book and therefore, you know, all bets are off. But certainly with the Shadow in the Glass, which again, I suppose I'm just disproving my point because it's that period of Colin Baker where the show could have gone anywhere, couldn't it? It could have done anything. And indeed, having been to see the place where Trial of a Time Lord was filmed, there's absolutely no doubt that Colin Baker could have done all sorts of things with his Doctor over and above the soured era. Anyway, I digress. What makes Touched by an Angel so good is that it takes your Moffatian tropes and then pushes them and explores them in a different way. So what you get here is a very 11th Doctor story. The characterisation of all our leads is absolutely on point. But what I particularly enjoyed about this story, and where I think it actually, you know, one of the things that rises it above your run-of-the-mill Doctor Who book is that usually when I read a Doctor Who book, I don't give a toss about the other characters, in so much as, you know, if you've got Winston Churchill or Hitler in, yeah, I'm interested. But in terms of your people you've brought into the mix that I haven't seen on a TV programme, they're very interchangeable. Now, I don't think it's a problem. I don't think that's an issue. And I know there are odd occasions where a character in a book has continued. Lethbridge Stewart had a granddaughter, Cadiat, too? Anyway. However, in this, oh my gosh, the two new characters, for want of a better word, Rebecca and Mark, will live long in my memory. And there's a few reasons for that. First of all, the romance between them is so believable. Like, I really do buy into these two characters and their relationship with one another. There is also the fact that Mark's predicament in the book, whereby, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, all that kind of stuff, but, you know, he's given a chance to perhaps shave his wife, but all moreover than that, you know, he's reliving events and stuff like that. I find that really relatable. I find that his involvement in the story, I can totally feel, I can totally buy into, and that makes me super happy. But there is the added extra of the fact that, and as Jonathan Morris has only just said on Blue Sky, Mark's living through reliving an era of his life that I have lived through. So Mark's a couple of years older than me, although that gets a bit complicated because of the nature of the book. He's a couple of years older than me. And Jonathan Morris has gone to great lengths to reference bands and TV programmes and things that were going on at the time. But what makes that super lovely is the fact that clearly Jonathan Morris has had a relationship with culture similar to I have. And the one bit that sticks out in my mind is at one point, one of the characters says to another, "Oh, we're going to go see this band. They're going to be bigger than Blur, and they're going to be bigger than Pulp." And the other guy goes, "What's they called?" And they go, "Echo Belly." And I flipping loved Echo Belly back in that. I still love Echo Belly now. I still listen to Echo Belly, so absolutely fabulous. So maybe I am one of that niche. I'm a very tiny generation that's going to fully appreciate this. But that's not the case, because what we get here is an absolutely brilliant Moffatian spin on the Weeping Angels. I do think it's interesting that I've read a book recently where it felt like a Weeping Angel book with Matt Smith's Doctrine, and this is most definitely Matt Smith's Doctrine with Weeping Angels in. The Weeping Angels are a really interesting Doctor Who baddie to bring to a book because they don't talk. On screen, they have a presence that is undeniable. But in book form, obviously, you can tell me there's a statue there, but they're robbed of a voice. And as a result, there's almost sort of an existential threat to them that isn't realised in terms of what they can do in terms of the plot and the story and whatever. And you find in this book that they have a definite threat that runs all the way through, up until the point, and this is my next thing, and genuinely, twice in quick succession on a very crowded train between Sheffield and Stockport, where then I had to get a bus, very annoyingly, I gasped. And I gasped twice. And the first reason I gasped is because the conceit of what the Weeping Angels are up to in this book is so clever. And I'm obviously talking about clever in Doctor Who terms, but I'm not, because there is something really canny about this. There is something really smart about the way that Jonathan Morris has structured this story so that we do get quite a rompy thing going with this emotional depth going on behind it, but we get scenes in a university digs and all sorts of nonsense. It starts off with quite a visceral death, actually, so, don't get me wrong. This goes the whole gamut. But then afterwards, you had a big gasp because there is a superb, again, Moffatian, which is my new favourite word, twist to how the Doctor resolves things that involves his companions. It involves a very canny piece of I can't say, but genuinely, I'm highly recommending this book to you now because, especially if you're my age, you are going to love this book because you will know all the references and you will have a lovely time reading it. But moreover than that, if, like me, you love Matt Smith's Doctor, if, like me, you appreciate what the Weeping Angels bring to Doctor Who over and above just being the scary statue type thing, which is enough, but there's so much more going on with the zapping back in time and stuff like that. If you're that sort of fan, this book is like flipping honey to a bee, because you will be absolutely enthralled by the way that it ducks and dives. I hate to say this as well, especially being a married man of my age and having the sort of relationship you've met my wife vicariously off camera. You kind of know the connection that me and my wife have, and I think if you are somebody who shares that kind of connection with anybody, anything in your life, then this book has a resonance and a depth that goes way beyond just student unions and references to music and stuff like that. Honestly, truthfully, again, I always have to caveat this because I've just read, as I said in my last bookie video, I've read 10, 11 of the best books written in English in the last year. Fantastic. If you want to ask me about those, stick it in the comments and I'll rant forever about that kind of thing. But I go to Doctor Who when I want something that just eases my soul, you know what I mean? Which is a balm, which is the sort of thing when it's dark outside like this is where I go. And this gave me that and more, because not only have we got the clever Doctor Who stuff, not only have we got all the cleverness of the Weeping Angels and things like that, but we also got just a bit of depth, a bit of resonance, a bit of a personal connection to me historically. And the fact that I finished this book on a day that I was going to see my two oldest mates and prance about in Stoke-on-Trent in a pottery museum, having a wonderful time pretending to be Colin Baker in the Valeyard and whatnot. What a joyous coming together of Doctor Who related things. There we go. Highly recommended. Touched by an Angel, Jonathan Morris. Please hunt this one down. It's really, really good. Farewell.